asking. Okay, so let's check now, Shinji. So our progress
Okay.
report says we are at stage 7, paragraph page 573. Okay, and our last headword was indirect speech with questions, imperative, and request. New word type of lesson. Okay, so let's start with revision.
Okay.
Ready?
Okay.
Here we go. First question. Put the word also in this sentence, please. You must study in class and you must practice your English outside the lesson. Put the word also in this sentence, please. You must study in class and you must practice your English outside the lesson. You must study in
You
class
must study in
and you
class.
must also
And you must
practice
also
your English
practice your English
outside the lesson.
outside the lesson.
Greg, put the word even in this sentence, please. I can't boil an egg. Put the word even in this sentence, please. I can't boil an egg. I can't even boil
I can't even
an
boil
egg.
an egg.
Very good. How can oil be transported from one part of the country to another? How can oil be transported from one part of the country to another? Oil can be
Oil
transported
can be
from one
transported
part of the country
from one part of the
to
country
another
to another
by big pipes.
by big
Very good. Okay,
pipes.
one moment, Chinchi. Okay. Eh, andyan pa si Mama.
One moment.
Okay, sorry about that. Let's continue. Is oil
Okay.
used a lot in cooking in your country? Is oil used a lot in cooking in your country?
So,
Yes or no?
yes.
Oils
Yes.
used a
Oils
lot
use a lot
in cooking in my
in
country.
cooking in my country.
Very good. What is the verb and the noun of the adjective hot? What is the noun and the verb of the adjective hot? The verb
The
and the
verb
noun
and the noun
for the adjective hot
for the adjective
is
hot
heat.
is heat.
Very good. Do you prefer the heat of the summer rather than the cold of the winter? Do you prefer the heat of the summer rather than the cold of the winter? Yes or no? I
Yes,
prefer the heat
I prefer the
of
heat
the summer
of the summer
rather than the cold
rather than
of the
the
winter.
cold of the winter
Why? Why? Because
because
I catch cold
I catch
in
cold
winter.
in winter.
Very good. How is your room heated? How is your room heated? My room
My
is
room
heated
is heated
by central heating.
by central heating.
In your country, which is cheaper, central heating or electric fires? In your country, which is cheaper, electric heating or central fires? In my country,
In my country,
central heating
central heating
is cheaper than
is cheaper than
electric fires.
electric fires.
Very good. When you lack sufficient money to buy something, do you wait and save the money or do you buy it on credit? When you lack sufficient money to buy something, do you wait and save the money or do you buy it on credit? When I lack
And when I lack
sufficient money
sufficient
to buy
money
something, I
to buy something, credit
I buy it on
uh,
credit.
I buy it credit on.
One more.
I buy
When I lack
when I lack
sufficient money
sufficient
to
money
buy something,
to buy
I
something.
buy it on credit.
I buy it on credit
Why? Why? Because
because I
need it.
need
I need it
need it
now.
now.
Very good. What do you think your town is lacking in more than anything else? What do you think your town is lacking in more than anything else? I think my town
I think my town
is lacking in
is lacking in young people
more than anything else.
more than anything else.
Very good. What do you think your town is lacking in? Oh, okay, so we're done with that. So, is there a serious lack of food in some countries in the world? Is there a serious lack of food in some countries in the world? Yes, there's a
Yes,
serious lack
there's a serious lack
of food in
of
some
food
countries in the world.
in some country in the world.
Very good. Okay, next. Who's your neighbor in this classroom? Who's your neighbor in this classroom? My neighbor
My neighbor,
in this classroom
this
is
classroom
nobody.
isn't
Is
It's
nobody.
no, nobody.
Very good. One more. My neighbor.
My
In this
neighbor
classroom,
classroom.
in this classroom
In this
is
classroom
nobody.
is nobody.
Very good. Why do you think it is that some people just don't get on well with their next door neighbors? Why do you think it is that some people just don't get on well with their next door neighbors? I think the reason
I think the
that
reason
some people
that some
just
people
don't get on
just
well
don't get on well
with their next door neighbors
with their next door
is that
neighbors,
we cannot choose.
which that
We
we
cannot
cannot
choose
choose
our friends,
our
but
friends,
we cannot choose
but we cannot
our
choose
neighbors.
our
Greg, do
neighbors.
you ever go to a neighboring town to do some shopping? Do you ever go to a neighboring town to do some shopping? Yes or no? I
Yes,
sometimes
I
go
sometimes
to
go
a neighboring town
to a neighboring
to
town
do some shopping.
to do some shopping
Why? Why? Because they have
because
bigger
they have
shopping malls.
bigger shopping mall.
Greg, and which do you think is the most pleasant neighborhood in your town? Which do you think is the most pleasant neighborhood in your town? I think
I think
my neighborhood
my
is the
neighborhood
most
is
pleasant
the most
neighborhood
pleasant
in
neighborhood
my town.
in my town.
Greg, are there quite a few shops in the neighborhood of your house? Are there quite a few shops in the neighborhood of your house? Yes or no? There
Yes,
are
there
quite a
are
few shops
quite a few
in the
shops
neighborhood
in the
of
neighborhood
my house.
of my house.
Very good. Okay, next. What's the name of the Holy Book for Christians? What's the name of the Holy Book for Christians? The name
The
of
name
the Holy Book
of the holy
for
book
Christians is
for
the Bible.
Christians is the Bible.
Very good. What? Which do you think was the bloodiest battle in history? Which do you think was the bloodiest battle in history? I think
I
the
think
Battle of
the battle
Stalingrad
of Stalingrad
was the bloodiest battle
was the bloodiest
in
battle
history.
in history.
Why do soldiers march? Why do soldiers march? Soldiers march
Soldiers
because
march
marching
because
helps
marching
maintain order
helps maintain
and
order,
also because
and also
it's
because
faster and less tiring.
it's faster and less tiring.
Very good. Who do you think is the most wicked person alive today? Who do you think is the most wicked person alive today? I think
I think
Mr. X
Mr.
is the
X
most wicked
is the
person.
most wicked,
Wicked, wicked person
wicked, wicked person
alive today.
alive today.
Very good. Do you think parents should teach their children about the importance of being honest? Do you think parents should teach their children about the importance of being honest? Yes. I think
Yes,
parents
I think
should
parents
teach their children
to teach their children
about the importance
about the
of being honest.
of being honest.
Very good. What do you do with clothes that you don't wear anymore? What do you do with clothes that you don't wear anymore? I throw away
I
clothes
throw away
that I
clothes
don't wear
that I don't wear
anymore.
anymore.
Very good. Are dogs very faithful to their owners? Are dogs very faithful to their owners? Yes, dogs
Yes,
are
dogs
very
are
faithful
very
to their
faithful
owners.
to their
Where
owners.
is it easier to grow food on a plane than on a mountain? Is it easier to grow food on a plane than on a mountain? Yes, it's
Yes,
easier
it's
to
easier
grow food
to grow food
on a plane
on a
than
plane
on a mountain.
than on a mountain
Why? Why? Because the earth
because the
on a
earth
plane
on a
is
plane
usually deeper
is usually deeper
and richer.
and richer.
Where it was food 1,000 years ago generally plainer than it is now. Was food 1,000 years ago generally plainer than it is now? Yes. Food
Yes,
a
food
thousand years
a
ago
thousand years
was
ago
generally plainer
was generally plainer
than it is now.
than it is now.
Greg, do you have more of a taste for plain clothes or for colorful clothes? Do you have more of a taste for plain clothes or for colorful clothes? I have more
I have
Of a
more
taste
of a taste
for
for
plain clothes or for
plain
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 clothes
plain clothes
than
plain clothes
than
than
colorful clothes.
colorful clothes.
Very good. What kind of work does a plainclothes policeman do? What kind of work does a plainclothes policeman do? A plainclothes
A plain
policeman
clothes policeman
does detective work,
does detective
the
work,
kind of work
the kind of
a
work
policeman in
a
uniform
policeman in
could not
uniform
do
could not do
because he would be
because he would
too
be
noticeable.
too noticeable.
Wait, would you like to be a plainclothes policeman? Would you like to be a plainclothes policeman? Yes or no? I'd
Yes,
like to be
I'd like to
a
be
plainclothes
a
policeman.
plain clothes policeman.
Very good. Do you think life is easier when people speak plainly to each other? That is, speak openly, directly, and honestly to each other. Do you think life is easier when people speak plainly to each other? That is, speak openly, directly, and honestly to each other. Yes or no? I
Yes,
think life
I
is
think
easier
life is
when
easier
people
when
speak
people
plainly
speak
to each
plainly
other.
to each
That
other.
is, speak
That
openly,
is, speak openly,
directly, and
directly,
honestly to each
and
other.
honestly to each other.
Very good. Okay, what do you do when you arrive at somebody's house to pay a visit? What do you do when you arrive at somebody's house to pay a visit? When I arrive
When I
at
arrive
somebody's house
at somebody's
to pay
house
a visit,
to pay a visit,
I ring the doorbell.
I ring the doorbell.
Very good. What do we do when the telephone rings? What do we do when the telephone rings? When the telephone rings,
When the telephone
we
rings,
pick it up
we pick it up
and answer it.
and answering.
Very good. What are the three forms of ring? What are the three forms of ring? The three forms
The
of
three
ring
forms
are
of ring
ring,
are
rang, rung.
ring, len, long.
Very good. If someone rang you while you were busy talking to another person, would you answer the call? If someone rang you while you were busy talking to another person, would you answer the call? Yes or no? If
Yes.
someone rang me
If someone rang me
while I was busy,
while
I
while I
was
was busy
talking to another person,
talking to another
I'd
person,
answer the call.
I'd answer the call.
Very good. Okay. What number do we ring in order to call the police? What number do we ring in order to call the police? We ring
We ring
110 in
110
order to call the
in
police.
order to call the
Megan,
police.
have you ever rung someone up without realizing how late it was and accidentally woken them up? Have you ever rung someone up without realizing how late it was and accidentally woken them up? Yes or no? I've
Yes,
sometimes
I've
rung
sometimes
someone up
rung someone up
without realizing
without
how
realizing
late it was
how late it
and
was
accidentally
and accidentally
woken them up.
woken them up.
Megan, when people are married, which hand and finger do they wear their wedding rings on?
Difficult.
When people are married, which hand and finger do they wear their wedding rings on? When people are
When
married,
people are
they
married,
wear their
they
wedding
wear
rings
their wedding
on the
rings
ring finger
on the ring finger
on their left hand.
on their left hand.
Very good. What does the idiom round the bend mean? What does the idiom round the bend mean? The idiom
The idiom
round the bend means
round the bend
mad.
means mad.
Give me an example. Give me an example, please. All this work
All this
is
work
driving me round the bend.
is driving me
Bend.
round the bend,
Round the bend. Very good.
round the bend.
Next, what do we do when we change a question from direct into indirect speech? What do we do when we change a question from direct into indirect speech? When we change a
When we
question
change a
from
question
direct
from direct
into indirect speech,
into indirect
we move
speech,
the verb
we move the
one
verb
step back
one step
into
back
the past.
into the
We
past.
use ask
We use
instead
ask
of said
instead of
and
said
instead of
and
said.
instead of said,
And we do not use
and we do not
the
use
question form
the
or
question
question
form
mark.
or question mark.
Very good. Give me an example. Give me an example, please. I asked them
I ask
what
them
they wanted to drink.
what they wanted to
Very
drink.
good. If the question does not contain a question word, what do we use instead? If the question does not contain a question word, what do we use instead? If the question
If the
does
question
not contain
does not
a
contain
question word,
a question
we
word,
use the word
we use
if
the word
or whether
if or
instead.
whether instead.
You give me an example. Give me an example, please. He asked her
He asked her
whether she spoke English.
whether
She
she
spoke
spoke
English.
English.
Very good. Okay, now I will ask you some questions and I want you to tell me what I said, okay? Using indirect speech. Here we go. How old are you? How old are you? You asked me
You ask
how
me
old I was.
how old
How,
I
how
was.
old I was.
How old I was.
Very good. Do your parents speak English? Do your parents speak English? You asked me
You ask
if
me
my parents
if my
spoke
parents
English.
spoke
Can you
English.
play the piano? Can you play the piano? You asked me
You ask me
whether I could play the
whether I
piano.
could play the piano.
Very good. Okay, that's the end of our revision. Let's have new word. Okay, so
Okay.
now let's have imperatives. Yeah,
Imperatives.
imperatives are like command words. Okay.
Command
Okay,
words.
repeat command.
Imperatives. Command.
Very good. Okay, listen. When we change, okay, when we change imperative from direct into indirect speech, we use the word told, commanded,
To
or ordered. And
command
we
or
use the
order.
infinitive with to instead of the imperative. Okay, for example, if it's a direct speech, we say, sit down, children, he said. For
she
indirect
said,
speech, we say, he told the children to sit down. So that's a
she told
command or
children
an
to
order,
sit.
right? Let's
Uh-huh.
practice. What do we do when we change an imperative from direct into indirect speech? What do we do when we change an imperative from direct into indirect speech? When we change
When we
an
change
imperative
an
from
imperative
direct into
from direct
indirect
into
speech, we
indirect
use
speech,
told.
we use
Told,
we poll
told, like the past tense of tell.
told,
Told,
はい、told,
commanded,
told, commanded,
or ordered.
or
And
ordered,
we use
and we
the
use
infinitive with
the
to
infinitive with to,
instead
はい、
of the imperative.
instead of the imperative.
Well, give me an example. Give me an example, please. The king commanded
The
him.
king command to him.
What more? The king
The
commanded
king
him
commanded him
to leave.
to leave.
Very good. Okay, next listen. With negative imperatives, negative commands, we put not before the infinitive.
Not,
For example, for direct speech, we say, don't walk so fast, Jack, said
don't
Lucy.
just say
For
Lucy. はい。
indirect speech, we change it to, Lucy told Jack
Lucy
not to walk
Lucy
so
told
fast.
Jack not to walk so far. はい。
Very good. Okay, let's
Okay.
practice. So, with negative imperatives, what do we do? With negative imperatives, what do we do? With negative
We
imperatives,
negative
we put
imperatives.
not
We put not
before the infinitive.
before the infinitive.
Give me an example. Give me an example, please. His mom told
His his mom told
him
him
not to get home late.
not to get home late.
Very good. Okay, now I will give you some orders and I want you to tell me what I said, okay? Okay, number one, stand up, stand up. What did I
Stand
say?
up.
You told
What did I
me
say? You told
to stand
me
up.
to stand up.
Very good. Don't look at your book. Don't look at your book. What did I say? You ordered me
You ordered me
not to look at my book.
not to look at my book.
Correct your dictations. Correct your dictations. You told me
You told
to
me
correct my dictations.
to correct my dictations.
Very good. Okay, next let's have request.
Request.
Very good. Okay, listen. When we change a
Request.
request from direct into indirect speech, we use ask. And we can use the same construction that we use for indirect questions or imperatives for questions or for command. For example, for direct speech, we say, I said, will you open the window, please, Daniel? Okay, for indirect
はい。
speech, there are
indirect
two forms. First, I asked
two forms.は
Daniel
い。
if he
I
would
asked
open the window,
the window. はい。
or I asked Daniel
I
to
asked
open the
Daniel
window.
to open the window.
Very good. The first
はい。
construction or the first um, form makes the reported request sound a little more polite. But the second
あ、
construction or the second form is more common and it is quicker.
さこも。は
Okay,
い。
let's
OK。
practice. What do we do when we change a request from direct into indirect speech? What do we do when we change a request from direct into indirect speech? When we change
Where
a
we
request
change a
from
request
direct
from direct
into indirect speech,
into indirect
we
speech,
use ask
we use we use ask,
and we can use
and we can
the same
use
construction
the same
that
construction
we use
that
for
we use
indirect questions
for indirect indirect
or
question
imperatives.
or imperative.
Very good. Okay, so now let's move on to reading.
Okay, reading.
Very good. So our reading is at stage 6, paragraph page 499. Okay, and our
99.
last headword was trouble. Okay, please start
Trouble.
at page 500. Change of
Okay.
spelling with comparison of adjectives.
Change of spelling. OK。change、